What's up guys, it's Manga Time once again, and I'm here today to bring you not a companion video because we'd be talking about the exact same matchups again this week because it's just still Basby and BG9, but instead a list video that I came up with, my top 5 most broken abilities in Bleach. And so the criteria basically for broken in this video is a move that is an ability that is really easy to pull off. It basically requires like no real charge up time, no real well, yeah, that's kind of it, really. No real plan, no strategy involved, really. You can just do it, and it's so overpowered, so overbearingly overpowerful that the person you're against, there's no real conceivable way if they can get around it. So, yeah. Yeah, so I've got 5. As always, leave your lists in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think are the most overpowered and just broken or hacks moves in Bleach. Yeah, I'd love to know what you think. So, yeah, onto the list, I suppose. So my number 5 is Nodt's Fear Thorns, okay? Now, while we haven't really seen this move a lot, we've seen it once, and the effects it had were devastating, they were fast, they were effective, and just overpowered. They were just broken. Doesn't have to do anything, really. He just literally, if you get hit by his arrows once, that's it, you're screwed. If you're a low-level Shinigami, you are engulfed by fear instantly, primal, instinctive fear, and there's nothing you can do, and you just die, basically. It's a one-hit kill. Against a Shinigami captain, however, it's a little different, as notes, Byakuya is able to resist it a little better, but still, Byakuya eventually becomes overcome by irrational, primal fear. There's absolutely nothing he can do about it, because that's the whole point. Az himself says that fear that has a reason can be conquered and stopped, but Az's power is fear that doesn't have a reason. It's that emotion that every person has inside of them anyway, and he himself calls it the most important emotion, but that's probably his own skewed view on it. But, I mean, this move is broken. This is so, you have to be on your toes. If you get hit once, you've basically lost the battle. And, it's, the only reason it's probably at 5th on my list is purely because if you're really strong, if you're a captain, you can resist it for a little longer. And I really doubt it helped that Nodt was having a big old monologue at the same time about the effects of fear. It would have been interesting to see him not say a word and see how it affected Byakuya. Because Az clearly likes to play mind games. But also, I wonder if it comes under the whole... I mean, most abilities probably do come under the whole idea of if you have considerably stronger Reiatsu than the other person, it won't work. Obviously, Byakuya didn't. Byakuya and Az have about the same Reiatsu, since Az was able to take Byakuya's Bankai. If anything, Az has more. But, yeah, I mean, it's just so broken, because as soon as you get hit by it, you see your worst fears. I mean, really, Byakuya saw Rukia as like some zombie. Now, that's actually kind of a rational fear. He's obviously afraid of her being killed. However, Az also says that the fear you feel through his ability is just irrational, instinctive, emotional fear. So yeah, you're buggered if you're hit by it, basically. And that's how quite a few of these abilities in this list go. So number 4 on my list is Tsukushima Shukuro's Book of the End. Now this ability started off pretty broken, and it just got more broken as the arc went along. Basically, when you're cut by his sword, he can kind of do one of two things. He can either implant himself into your past as a friend, and this is, it's almost foolproof. This is kind of why he's not number 1 as well. I'll get into this in a minute, though. Or he can learn everything there is about you, and it's even implied by Tsukushima that he, say for example, take the Byakuya fight. He implants himself in Byakuya's past as someone who trained Byakuya, and therefore, if he trains with Byakuya, he gets stronger with Byakuya. And obviously Byakuya's had 2 years of training after the Aizen battle, and so Tsukushima says he gets stronger as well with those 2 years. That is so broken, it's unreal. It's like you could cut Yama, pretend you've been his trainer for the last 1,000 years, and gain 1,000 years worth of power. I think Tsukushima's exact words are something like, Byakuya says to think those last 2 years of training would prove to be useless. Byakuya says they have not proving to be useless, it's just that I've improved by the same amount. That is literally so broken. But then there's also the fact that he can, with just one cut, can turn you into an ally of his pretty much for eternity until he dies. So not eternity, but the reason he's kind of not number one is because we've seen this isn't foolproof. If memories start to clash, or if Tsukushima tries to affect a memory that's too strong, like Orohime's brother or Chad's coin, the person starts to flip out. And if you were using that as an ability against someone you wanted to fight with, it might not be too bad, but when Tsukushima's trying to get allies, that's not really very helpful. And obviously there's the fact that I'm pretty certain that if he was to it'd just be possible to break out of it. I think if the memories were colliding, and if you it's kind of hard to explain, but I do think it would be possible to break out of it, and I think that's another one where the Reiatsu difference would come into effect a lot. Like, I think, say, if Tsukushima cut Aizen, he probably wouldn't be able to do anything. I know that's kind of implying Tsukushima and Byakuya have the same Reiatsu, which probably isn't true, but I wouldn't say they're too far off. And then there's obviously the fact that Tsukushima wasn't able to make Byakuya his friend as such, so that might imply that Tsukushima has the whole Reiatsu thing has affected Tsukushima. I don't know. Tsukushima's Book of the End is 4th on my list. Now 3rd, and there's a reason this isn't number 1. There's a reason they're all not number 1, but there's quite an explicit reason this isn't number 1. Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi West. Okay, so his whole Bankai is pretty overpowered. South, where he summons the army of the undead, in my opinion, that's the least broken of his 4 abilities, because we saw Yuhavart basically just bats them out of the way, and there's a lot of them, but they didn't actually seem to attack him much. East turns everything it touches into oblivion. It just completely annihilates it. However, all you have to do is avoid the single point of the sword that's concentrated on. In the Yuhavart fight, that was concentrated on the tip, and Yuhavart knew that, and so he just had to avoid it. However, if it had hit him, it would obliterate him. So yeah, kind of unfair, but also has a significant weakness. North as well, it is broken, but it's kind of too hard to decipher what's going on to actually make a judgment call there. I'm pretty sure he just swings a Getsuga of fire, basically, and it's obliterating as well. But I really think West is where the complete brokenness lies. Basically, he covers himself in flaming Reiatsu, and you just can't touch him. He's invincible, completely invincible. Yuhavart, I know he was actually Roid Lloyd, but he was still monstrously powerful. And he tried to cut Yama, and his sword just disintegrated immediately. It was very similar to when Aizen had, you couldn't touch him because everything would just disintegrate. But this, it kind of includes Shinigami as well. So so that's really cheap, really broken. The fact that when he's at that level of Bankai, you just can't touch him. The fight is over, basically. There's also the fact that he can make it invisible. Yeah, that's really broken. But the reason Yama's Zanka no Tachi West is not my number 1 is because to reach this power, he would have had to have done some serious ass training, and it would have taken him a while as well. Not only that, he would then have to master it. Whereas the rest of the abilities on this list are easy to access. You pretty much can just do them straight off the bat, apparently, from what we know anyway. Yama's is so broken, but the reason he's not number 1 is because he would have had trained for ages to get that, and kind of deserve it. It's kind of deserved because of just how long he was training to get that Bankai ability. So, number 2 on my list. Now, this was really hard to kind of decide between 1 and 2. But in the end, I just had to make a choice. And number 2, Barragan's Respirar. Now, this is really broken. He can literally walk past anything and it disintegrates, it ages and dies away. He can breathe his Respirar breath and it will age and die, just kill something off. The reason this isn't my number 1 is because when it got Soifon's arm, it didn't kill her immediately. She had a chance to get rid of her arm and that was okay. It spreads like an infection. And there's also the fact that Respirar has a very, frankly, obvious weakness. and that is the fact that Barragan can probably be affected by it as well, which obviously was used against him. And you just need the right kind of fighters to come up against him, really, like Hachi. However, of course, that doesn't mean his ability isn't formidable. He is so broken in that he literally doesn't have to do anything at all, really. He can just sit there and kill everything. He is very, very OP. He doesn't really need any other abilities because that is just so overwhelmingly powerful. It doesn't seem to have any restrictions, doesn't even have any limits apart from it can't touch him, otherwise he'll die. But he's able to expel it anyway, so if the only way to beat him is to basically do what Hachi did. However, it's a weakness that is fairly easy to pick up on if you're observant enough. So yeah, I think Barragan's Respirar, although it is very overpowered, that one weakness is quite striking. So that kind of leaves my number one. And before we get to number one, I'd just like to do some honourable mentions that didn't make it on this list, but they are also very broken. Number one would be Yumichika's Ruiro Kujaku. All he has to do is release it properly, and then, from what we've seen, it grapples onto the opponent, and then they're screwed. That's it. So we don't know if the opponent's able to possibly dodge Ruiro Kujaku, but we saw Charlotte Coolhorn couldn't avoid it, and Shuhei Hisagi couldn't avoid it either. So that implies to me it kind of just homes in, and then it just drains their Reiatsu, and then Yumichika's able to refill his own Reiatsu off it as well. So yeah, that's really OP. And then another one is the Quincy Sclaver ability. We don't know enough about this yet at all, in my opinion, and we will need to see it in action once again. But it's the halo that Kurge used to absorb Aeon. That's broken, because he doesn't seem to have to do anything again. It's just the fact that the Quincy are so prominent at racy domination that he can just go, yeah, I'm going to pull you apart, and you're going to come onto my body and basically be in a buff of my powers. So yeah, that's really broken. There are a couple of others as well. Sakanade's pretty broken, but like Aizen basically said, you just have to work out a way to get around it. So yeah, there's some honourable mentions. Like I said, guys, leave a list below. Tell me what you think. Gin's Kamishini no Yari poison ability is broken as hell, because when you hit by it, you die, basically. The only reason Aizen didn't is because he's Aizen. And again, the reason that didn't kind of make it onto my list is because Gin would have had to work quite hard to get his Bankai, etc, etc. But yeah, that's pretty broken. So yeah, that's really it. Let me know in the list below what you guys think. What's your top 5 most broken abilities in Bleach? Here's my number 1. You might have seen this coming, I reckon. Aizen Sosuke's Kyoka Suigetsu. This is the most plot device broken thing pretty much in the manga. Apart from Hogyoku, but Hogyoku's not really an ability as such. So yeah, I went with Kyoka Suigetsu. First off, it's a Shikai, so it's not like he would even have to train for Bankai to get it. Secondly, he needs to release it once, and you're under its power forevermore. Forevermore. So he can literally just do what he did to the lieutenants and say, yeah, my sword is something else, come, I'll show you a demonstration. Boom! All the lieutenants are now under my spell for the rest of the series. Yeah, it's so broken. So broken. And when you're, I don't even talk about when you're under his spell. When you're under his spell, he can literally do whatever he wants. Show you whatever he wants, make you hear whatever he wants. He just controls your senses. I can't remember what his exact words are. Like make a fly appear as a dragon and a swamp appear as a flower garden or something like that. Yeah, he can. Literally, he can. And it's just so broken, because I know it has a weakness. Hold the blade before he Shikais. But the thing with that is, it's not like anyone's ever going to know. I mean, I know Aizen explicitly tells Gin, but in my opinion, that is very strange. I think the only reason Kubo added that in there is because he wanted to make Gin look like he had a chance. Because Aizen doesn't strike me as the person who would ever tell anyone that. It's his weakness. Why would he ever tell someone, this is Aizen? So yeah, in my opinion, that kind of was a bit out of character for Aizen. And I think Kubo just put it in there to make Gin look like he was actually going to have a chance. So yeah, the thing with Barragan's Respirar is you can kind of obviously get what his weakness is if you look enough, but Kyoka Suigetsu has no discernible weakness unless you know what it is. Unless it specifically comes out of Aizen's mouth. So, without that, you can't beat Kyokusui Getsu. He could hold you for an illusion for the rest of time if you wanted to, and you just wouldn't know. So that's it, guys. That's my top 5 most broken abilities in Bleach. As Nott's Fear, Tsukushima's Book of the End, Yama's West, Barragan's Respirat, and Aizen's Kyokusui Getsu. Let me know in the comments below what yours are. Give this video a thumbs up. It's a really good way to support it. And as always, guys, subscribe. And I shall catch you for our review on Wednesday. See you then, guys.